am Dr. Jamira Mitchell, but you can call me Dr. Jam. And I am now, I am Dr. Jam and a part of the NIL Spot powered by Cascade TV. So this is our first episode of the NIL Spot podcast, and really excited to be here. And the NIL Spot podcast is really about name, image, and likeness, those three trigger words that everybody wants to know about. So we're going to talk about NIL and also how it can be incorporated in different departments that you never would think of. So we have a guest on today, and I will allow her to introduce herself.
Hello, I am Adrieanne Moliere. I'm an esports coordinator by day, and I am also one of the executives of By-U Esports here in Louisiana.
So tell us about By-U Esports.
By-U Esports is a little nonprofit that was developed in order to help support families and school districts in bringing esports to themselves, to their communities, especially our underprivileged. We know typically in Louisiana, Black communities that would not usually have access to the technology, to some of the new research and studies that are coming out in regards to esports. So that's what we do, and I get to do it with one of my best friends, so it's great.
Who's your best friend?
What is it, Dr. Jam?
Yes,
It is.
we do have a nonprofit called By-U Esports, and it is definitely a mostly scholastic esports. So as we think about esports, like I only think of well before, a lot of times we have to break the stereotype that esports is not just about sitting around playing video games all day. So let's talk about what we do with esports, and we'll move more into the not the NIL aspect as well.
All right, so when it comes to esports, I mean, esports in itself is competitive gaming. And like you mentioned, there is also scholastic esports, which is using gaming and esports as a driving force behind students learning. We know when we were growing up, we were on a playground. We came back inside before the street lamps came on. Millennials still had, we're told that, just for anybody else curious. But obviously, kids today, they're growing up on computers with cell phones in their hands. We live in the age of iPad babies. Everything is moving. It's always going. It's quick. It's bright. It's cute. It's fun and engaging. And esports is a big part of that. There are been many games since the 1970s that have been used for competitive aspects. Some of the biggest ones, of course, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, League of Legends. It's not just a national thing in the United States, it's an international thing. Some of the biggest teams come out of Korea, come out of Germany, come out of China. And America gets to be a country that actually stands on equal footing competing against these places. But then not just the real cool international side of it, you have the collegiate side. Louisiana, the state we're in, most of the major colleges have some form of an esports program, whether it is school directed and run or if it's run by students. And many of them offer scholarships. I still talk to so many parents today. I put it on everything, where it says you can get a scholarship for doing this, you can go to college off of playing a video game, and they're still shocked and surprised by it today. And then it slides into the K-12 aspect with, elementary, middle, and high school. One, how can we engage kids? A big game is Minecraft. And they all play it, but it also has coding in it. It has awesome lessons in it, like for English, math, science, social studies, STEM. There is a in New York, they do something called the Battle of the Boroughs, where the students actually create, they work, they collaborate with each other, and they create these boroughs in the game called Minecraft that reflect where they live, and then they compete in it. So you're not just playing a game, you're doing something, you're focused in, you're coding, you're collaborating, you're leading, you're communicating, which is something many kids aren't getting a ton of today. So I mean, esports is this huge thing. There's tons of careers that go along with it. And I mean, we're in the K-12 space, so we get to touch on it a little bit, which is amazing.
So you said something that was very triggering, the communication aspect of it. So when we think about the communication aspect of it and moving into the NIL space, how does that help with students that want to be one day get that NIL deal, the communication, especially if they are lacking those skills? So how can esports help with the communication aspect?
hmm Well, okay, first of all, so I also did a stint at LSU as a career intern. And I'm going to tell you, regardless of what sector you're in, communication, if you're a student, if you're a parent, is at the top of the thing you have to be able to do. I've worked with engineers, I've worked with people in the medical field, I've worked with lawyers who could not communicate effectively. And when it comes to something like esports, esports can be something occasionally where communication isn't verbal, it's nonverbal. A lot of games you're giving cues, or you don't want the other team to hear you. But like any sport, like basketball, like football, like soccer, or if you're in England, football, communication, if communication breaks down, that's not good, that's not productive, you're more than likely not going to win. I have worked with teams where we're talking, we're communicating, and then when things start going bad, the communication falls apart, it stops happening, and that will wind up you losing, not just a match but the entire game. um, and it's not just communicating, but communicating effectively. I know a lot of people probably see the videos that show kids like rage quitting and breaking their controllers and things like that. That's not typical. That's something that streamers sometimes like to do to get attention or to create a viral clip. And everyone sees that and they're like, oh, video games make kids violent and things like that. No, violence gives people attention, and that's what they go for. But that is not what esports is about. Esports is about communicating effectively, communicating respectfully, and communicating in a way that is going to drive upward mobility. And then when it comes to NIL deals, I mean, honestly, in something like esports, but in the K-12 space, period, all of these NIL deals are not coming to kids. They're not like dropping in their lap. These are kids that are going out there, their parents are supporting them in finding these opportunities. And regardless of, if you're on the NIL Spotcast or on What's Up KC, you have to be able to communicate. That's the first way you present yourself to somebody. If you can't speak properly, if you can't communicate effectively, why am I going to make you the face of my brand? Why am I going to put you on the cover if you don't represent what I represent? So communication is huge, not just for NIL, but for esports, because you have to practice talking to people also that might not be familiar with what you're doing. A lot of people, even, Jam, our age and older people, they're not familiar with video games in that way, or they're like, okay, video games, that thing that makes you need to touch grass or something like that, they're not familiar with it. And it's this global competitive billion-dollar industry that LeBron James has touched on, that you've got big streamers touching on, you've got
You
uh,
have NBA teams that are touching on
NBA
it,
teams.
especially with NBA 2K. There's the Atlanta Hawks. There
Mhm.
was the Golden State Warriors. Like they had their own esports team, even
Yes,
League of Legends, which
yes.
really requires you to communicate with each
Yes,
other.
100%. 100%. It's a strategy game. And then all these games are also different. Everything is not just you're walking around with a gun and you're shooting. Many games. And as we know, every sport requires strategy. If you don't have strategy, if you don't have that strategic communication, you're not going to win. You're not going to get up to the national level where celebrities, Snoop Dogg, we know there's been rappers, artists, like you said, the Golden State Warriors, even, football players that are investing and endorsing esports because their children do it.
Yeah,
And
like recently, I think it was T-Pain versus Drake. They
yes,
they had and then I think Neo was a part of it as well. Like it's global and it's really hitting home. So how would you suggest to your students or your student athletes a way to get an NIL deal, even though we know that for so long esports has they've put patches on some of the jerseys. It's been pretty much a walking billboard. But what things would you suggest to your student athletes and to those that are listening as to what they should look for when developing NIL deals, such as partnerships that you would suggest?
work on your portfolio. I think that's the biggest thing, regardless of whatever sector you're in. You need to have a portfolio. Don't go to anybody expecting them to know who you are, what you're about, and what you're for. You should have or a portfolio. You should have a plan in mind when you're going to speak to people, and you also need to be able to articulate why you are a benefit to this company. The portfolio, you want to make sure that it aligns with the company that you're speaking to, that if they have certain values, if they have a certain background, you want to do your research. I mean, it's an interview.
And
You're
just to interject, so those that listen to my podcast, we always talking about the personal brand. And so this is the jargon that I tell you. So this for esports, a personal brand is actually a portfolio. So we want you to truly understand this is just, an industry term. Sorry.
elevator pitch. Boom. You
Yes.
taught me that. And you have to have your elevator pitch ready, like 2 to 3 minutes about, who you are, what you're doing, what this is for, why it would be a benefit. If I'm doing esports, I'm going to look at companies that maybe create my mouse, maybe my keyboard, maybe whoever I got my PC from or certain parts in the PC. There's graphic cards companies. NVIDIA is the largest chip making company in the world, and they invest a ton in esports. There's NZXT that creates some of the cooling systems. You might even look at Dell, maybe Microsoft, because that's your OS, your operating system, or your CPU, which is the brain of your computer. But also, if you are a high school, even middle school athlete, look within your own community. I'm constantly doing research in Louisiana and even just in Baton Rouge where I live, and I see computer companies that I had never heard of, and I'm like, that would be an amazing opportunity to work with this company. I have seen computer companies that fix computers, small businesses, large businesses. One time I went into what was it? Corks. I went into Corks with a esports jersey on, and the manager just happened to be in front and saw my jersey and was like, "Oh, what games do you play?" And we start talking about it. And I'm thinking, I'm like, well, would this be something you would be interested in, maybe like donating food to if we do events? And he's just like, yes, he's excited about it. He's like, yeah, my kids play video games. I love this. And that was an opportunity because I was in a way wearing my portfolio on my
Right.
body. I was advertising. Um,
Right.
but there's so many opportunities. You don't have to go big. Red Bull, Celsius, a lot of the energy drinks, they are big in esports because you need energy, mental focus, and all of that good stuff in order to compete at a high level. But yeah, I mean, if you want to talk to Alienware that makes headphones and makes keyboards and makes mice, they're one of the biggest names in esports when it comes to that. Yeah, I would do that, but I would also look locally. Have your portfolio ready. Say, this is what I've done. This is my goal. This is where I would want to be. I would love to have a name, image, and likeness deal with you all. It looks like our values align. I'm really for X, Y, Z. I see you guys are for X, Y, and Z. And people just appreciate that anyway. They appreciate when you've done your research, when you come to them and you've done your research and you know what you're talking about. So yeah, look locally. Look, get an idea of maybe what college you want to go to, see if they have an esports program. Arizona State University has a huge one. Like I said before, Southern, Loyola, there's tons of colleges that have huge esports programs that will give you money to go there. And that's just an extra awesome thing that you can say that, maybe this NIL deal will follow me when I go to college.
Right. And if not, get bigger.
Yes.
And as we're talking about Corks, so Corks is a local restaurant in Baton Rouge. So I don't want you guys to always think that it's about money. Sometimes those meals come in handy. So let's also look at it from that aspect as well, because that's still saving you money. So don't think that every NIL deal has to be about how much someone is giving you in cash, but those services can definitely save you money. So it's still money in your
Yeah.
pocket. So as we wrap up, and this was a very fun. Yes, this is my friend, and we do have a By-U Esports, but when we talk about the scholastic aspect of it, and I know within By-U we support students that have we call it different abilities.
Mhm.
So how can the mom that's trying to figure out how to entertain their child with different abilities, how can they help? And I want you to give your background as to how we came up with that thought process.
Okay, so great question. This is something I continue obviously to do today. But so went to Baton Rouge High, one of the top schools in the state of Louisiana. Went to LSU. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like, I like teaching. And as I got into the classroom, I saw our differently able students, our diverse learners is kind of like the term we're using today. And I love that because it encompasses, everyone from our severe and profound to gifted students. And special education occasionally and still to a lot of people today, I would say has this negative connotation in it. And there's nothing wrong with being a diverse learner, with being identified as a special education student. You learn differently. It's an opportunity to get the help and the support that your child needs to be able to thrive in school the same way their peers do. So I worked in special education for about 6 years. I loved it. I loved helping kids. And that was actually part of how I got into even doing esports. During COVID, esports popped off. You brought me in to the club. And one of the first things that I was kind of looking to see, one of the things that I'm always looking for when I'm looking at curriculum, content, anything like that, is how does this work for our diverse learners? And what I quickly learned is that esports is incredibly accessible. Many parents of students with disabilities will be familiar with the term IEP, an individualized education program, and the assistive technology portion that is on the IEP. And the whole point of assistive technology is my student with a reading disability or with a math disability need perhaps a calculator, or they need text to speech, or they might need speech to text, one or the other, both sometimes. Gaming has always been incredibly accessible. I didn't know until I did more research that individuals that have muscular dystrophy, those gross and fine motor skills, quadriplegics, play competitively esports because many companies like Xbox, like Sony, like Microsoft, they create accessible controllers. They create controllers that you blow into and that changes the intensity, or you can move it, with your mouth perhaps, and it turns you left and right. They make controllers. We know that there's devices where you can make your own controller. If you want to
Mhm.
use a banana as the A button, boom, make a banana your A button. If you want Apple, to be your joystick, use an Apple. There's so many different ways gaming is accessible, but then you also have games that you can lower the intensity, all of the settings. If you've ever watched a streamer, sometimes you'll see them toggle their settings before they go into a game. And that's because maybe the brightness causes headaches, or they suffer from migraines, or the way the camera moves in the game, it shakes too much. So they actually lower the intensity of the shake because it's disorienting to them. But gaming has always been this accessible thing. We have just not been taking advantage of it. Um, and then parents that are interested in touching on what their kids are touching on. I speak to so many parents all the time that's like, my child has autism and they struggle so badly in school, but for some reason, when they get on that game, they're focused and they're amazing and they're doing well, and they're having fun. And the cool thing about it is, mom, dad, whoever I'm talking to, you can join in on that fun with your child. You can expand their horizons by simply picking up a controller and gaming with them, letting them teach you, learning from them about it. It's not as it's like anything. I heard someone say the other day that they were very surprised when they learned about esports, because they were like, I think about video games and I'm like, that's the least athletic thing that you can do. And I looked at them and I said, well, I would love for you to pick up a controller. I'll give you an 8-year-old. Play them in Minecraft and see who wins. Play them in Splatoon and let's see who wins. Pick up a controller against a 7-year-old and let's see if you can beat them at Super Smash Bros.
That part.
If I've never thrown a football
Mario
before,
Kart.
Mario Kart. Boom. Those children and their reflexes and that dexterity is insane. I can't keep up. And I've been gaming since I have 4 older brothers. I've been gaming since I was 8, and they smoke me all the time. It's insane. But everything that is new is hard. And just because something requires you to sit at a desk and hold a controller doesn't make it any less athletic mentally, physically, than a game like basketball, football. Just because these kids are sitting at a desk does not mean that we don't stretch. It doesn't mean that we don't meditate. It doesn't mean that we don't run. You have to keep physically healthy, because I don't know if some people know this, but you can actually get back problems from sitting all day. You can
Okay.
get carpal tunnel from all of the moves that you have to make with a keyboard and controller. Every sport has different issues. Just because a kid that does esports isn't tearing his ACL, or who was it? Who's out? Joe Burrow's out right now with a broken toe and he can't play football. Okay, if you break your wrist or your hand or anything like that, that's your money.
But
That's my.
I bet his foot is going to be up and he's going to be playing video games
Yeah,
so
I
that
know
when
Joe
he
Burrow
comes
is playing
back,
video games. I
so
know
when
he
he
is.
comes back, he'll have a game plan. And also
Yes.
thinking about it, there's also a psychology of sports within esports.
Yes.
So our students go through the same mental anguish that
Mhm.
common sports go through as well.
Yeah, I mean, uh, the same way after you lose a match, the way, what was it? I think not Jamal Murray, Jalen Hurts said it. He said it's 90% how you respond, and it's 10% of something else. I'm sorry, Jalen Hurts, I love you. But like that's the biggest thing I have to teach kids in esports is that it's 90% how you respond. If I'm getting my butt beat into the ground in a game of Smash Bros and I'm down 3-2, and I know if I lose the next match, I'm out. That's it for me. Mentally, I'm not going to be my best. I'm not
So
going to
explain the 3-2 aspect.
so 3-2 and like let's take Smash Bros for example. You can most people play stock games and it'll be the best either out of 5, out of 6, out of 7. So let's just say we're playing out of 7. They're up 3. I'm up.
This is the playoffs, game 7.
This is playoff. This is game 7. If I lose, I'm done. Mentally, I'm not going to be in the best place. I might be in my head telling myself, what's the point of even trying? Why would I even like they're good. They keep on using Ganondorf. Ganondorf is super tanky. I don't know what none of the characters that I play, Lil Mac, Fox, Pit, none of them are strong enough to defeat Ganondorf. What am I gonna do? But if I keep that negative mentality, my sister who is she's a life coach, she taught me this thing. This back when I was in high school, so obviously everybody knows about it now. But she said, you get out of the world what you put out there. And I was struggling in algebra too. I was like, my mom's gonna kill me if I come home with another C, like I'm dead. And I went into every test being like, why even try? I'm gonna fail. And she pulled me to the side and she told me, she said, stop telling yourself that you're going to fail. If you tell yourself you're going to fail, of course you're going to fail. Tell yourself that you are going to go in there and you're going to do the best you can do. You're going to get an A on that test. You're going to kill it. And the first time I did it, I still wasn't prepared for this exam. I came out with a B. And I was shocked and I was so excited to tell her that when I went home. And I've had to do the same thing with my students. We've played games before and they've been down and they're like, why do I even try? Like, I can't beat them. And I'll have to say, all right, time out, pull them to the side and say, hey, 80% of what you're doing right now is mental. You're destroying yourself. The match is not over. And if you keep that negative mentality and you end the match with that, you're going to go into your next game. You're going to go into the next season with that same idea. I've had kids come to me and be like, I don't want to do Smash Bros anymore. I faced somebody in the finals and they whooped my behind. So just because somebody's better at you, you're just going to stop everything. And Miss Moliere don't play that. We don't quit. We're going to keep getting better. We're going to keep working hard. Practice doesn't make perfect, but practice makes better. And if you give up every time you face adversity, you're never going to get to a better level. You're never going to learn how to persevere in your professional life, in your, intimate relationships, in your relationships with your friends, things like that. You have to learn how to persevere. And gaming is one of those things that really teaches kids perseverance super well. And parents can learn perseverance. We're not parents ourselves, but kids are stressful. All right. We with them half of the day. They stress us out too. We just get to drop them off back to you at the end of the day. But they're
Right.
stressful. Gaming can be a way for you to learn how to persevere. If this one educational strategy that I used with this kid does not work, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep talking to you. I'm going to try different things. I'm going to figure out what works for you because my job is for you to be successful. And my job is also for me to enjoy the work that I do as an educator. And if I'm going home miserable every day, complaining about children, complaining about parents, that's not a good work-life balance. That's not what I want for myself. So if I don't believe in it, I can't teach it to kids. Kids got to believe in themselves. They got to learn how to persevere. And it's just gaming is one of those amazing things where it offers just like a plethora of all these things.
Yes, yes.
They,
So as we think about gaming, of course, there's the ecosystem of career technology and education. There's also the monetization behind it because in the state of Louisiana, high school students can monetize from their name, image, and likeness. And as we're talking more about that, we want you to make sure you check in with your state to see if your state allows high school students, to monetize from their name, image, and likeness, and also make sure that you are up to date on how it could be done. But we wanted to just start off this this conversation of NIL Spot podcast being powered by Cascade TV, Sports TV, sorry, to let you know that there are other routes to getting NIL deals. And yeah, we're here for you. So again, I am Dr. Jam, and I once again want to thank my friend, Miss Adrieanne Moliere. And how can we reach you if there's some other parents or even educators that are interested in how to incorporate gaming into their everyday life. So how can we reach you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Adrieanne Moliere, Facebook, I'm on there. I'm on Instagram, she who be awkward. I'm a gamer, I'm an awkward girl, it's okay. But we also have info at byuesports.com. I'm also you can find me, Adrieanne Moliere, gmail.com. Any of those ways, if you have questions, if you want to, reach out to, Dr. Jam and I, if you want to bring esports to your school, if you're looking for ideas, if you're trying to figure out how you're going to get it funded, grants, things like that, esports is STEM, reach out to us. That's our whole goal, is to bring more esports to everybody in the state of Louisiana. We don't gatekeep. Our kids need people to compete against. They can't do that if just in Baton Rouge we're doing one little thing and we're not helping out the people in New Orleans, St. Mary Parish, Ascension, Central, LaFourche, wherever you're at.
And even outside of Louisiana.
And even outside of Louisiana, Texas, see you. Florida, see you too.
Jersey.
Yes, yes, definitely. Reach out to us. We're here to help. We're educators at heart, and we love helping kids learn in the environment that they thrive in, which is online. So yeah, hit us up.
Yes, yes. And hopefully we'll have our Discord one day, and we will be able to give you some tips and tricks about esports, and then also incorporating it into your school and incorporating NIL. So this is the first episode of NIL Spot podcast on Cascade TV. So once again, thank you and bye-bye.
This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.